Food is sourced constantly from all over the world, and transportation is what connects the production and consumption. And produce is the most difficult but the most profitable business for these supermarkets. So the expectations in terms of service and price and reliability are very high. And traditionally, intermodal, which relies on long haul rail, has had a problem getting into that space because the railroads used to have all this business once upon a time and they lost it. And this industry has a lot of people with long memories. Well, we started with 200 containers in February of 2014. We now have 730 containers. We want to be at 2,000 containers um, by 2019, which would make us the largest intermodal perishable operator in the United States. The most radical piece of our technology is that it's a container, not a trailer. It doesn't have any wheels on it. The wheels are provided at origin and destination to put under the box to affect the pickup and delivery. This was the technology that Malcolm McLean developed in the 50s that transformed international trade. Only whereas those containers are 40 feet, ours are 53 foot to compete with what the standard is in the highway trailer business. They're equipped with a very sophisticated refrigeration unit. It's got sophisticated insulation, has a number of sensors in there that are controlling the temperature setting and how long and how cold it runs. And then it's equipped with a very sophisticated GPS application so we know where it is, what's its situation. We know if the doors are open, we know if the doors are closed, we know if the driver's moving or sitting. We can look at the temperature, we can look at the fuel levels remotely. When we moved into this business, we were attracted to produce. And we were attracted to produce because it had a long length of haul, and that's where intermodal has been most competitive with truck. But produce is really a subset of the perishable vertical. And perishables can also include things such as processed foods, such as juice, drinks, frozen food. So it's got a very large base just beyond the traditional produce that you think of. And as people eat and consume more fresh food and more other high-end product, most of it needs to be transported. There's talk of local produce, and there's a lot of produce that can be produced locally. If you think about Kansas City, well, obviously tomatoes, corn, they're things that for various periods of the year you could grow locally. Maybe it's an 8 to 10 week season. But when you go into the supermarket, you're thinking, I'm looking for peaches. Or grapes. I don't care if they're grown locally or not. Well, my partner and I have been in the intermodal freight transportation business for a long time, and we're always looking for the next best opportunity. And while intermodal has been very successful in the dry business, it has not really penetrated the perishable business and specifically the produce business. And the reason for that is that the owner operators, the independent truck drivers, have really owned that space since trucking deregulation in the 1980s. Most transportation has a series of safety regulations, and the most important one is what's called hours of service. And a truck driver can be driving for 11 hours a day and on duty for 14. And this is controlled by a series of paper logbooks that just look like graph paper. And it's really the honor system. And there's nothing to prevent truck drivers from maintaining several different sets of logbooks so that if they're pulled over by the police, it looks like they're driving legally. We see in our business, especially on produce, that people are driving from the West Coast to New York in 2.5 days. You can't do that legally. So this person is out there on the highway, probably taking some sort of substance to keep them awake, clearly violating that. But as of December 16th, that rule changes. And there are what they call ELDs, or electronic logging devices, where the driver will no longer be able to lie. The machine will know, and if you're driving, it knows, and you won't be able to fool it. And if you don't have one of these, you won't be able to drive. That's going to fundamentally change the business because the population of these long distance owner operators hasn't really changed in a long time. The demographic is of a white male in his late 50s. It's not a job you see a lot of millennials lining up for. It is a very hard, very difficult, not very remunerative business. And there is a lot of research out there that indicates that once these laws go into place, a driver is only going to be able to drive 11 hours a day. And if a driver can only drive 11 hours a day at today's rates, he's not going to make any money. And when that happens, not only will rates change, but the service equation will change. We can go from the West Coast to New York in 6 days. Right now, that's truck plus one. But because trucks will do it in 5 days running hot, as we discussed. Soon, when you're limited to the hours you can drive, it will probably be 7 days. So this intermodal product will go from being truck plus one, where we need to compete on an economic basis, to truck minus one. We'll be faster than truck, we'll be more reliable than truck, we'll be more environmentally benign by truck, and we're really looking forward to those market conditions.